Welcome to the Safety Map podcast. I'm Alyssa Decker, founder and developer of the Safety Map framework, and this is where we talk about how safety, not performance, is the foundation of healing. We're talking about healing that goes beyond coping skills and into structural change. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to the Safety Map podcast. Have you ever been stuck in a pattern that just keeps repeating? And you see it, and you're aware of it, and sometimes you can even catch it in the moment, but you still repeat the pattern. You still repeat the cycle, even though you can see it happen in real time. Most of us, when this happens, we double down on the fixing. We read another book. We listen to another podcast. We go to another therapy session or 12. What we have been taught is that the more we learn, the more capacity we have for change. But that's not exactly how your nervous system actually works. I was in a session recently with a client who was describing this exact scenario playing out in her own life. She was describing to me the pattern, and then she said, "Oh, this is so frustrating. I feel like I'm so close. I know what to do." And I said to her, "Yeah, you do. And it's super annoying that your nervous system does not respond to knowledge. Your nervous system doesn't change because you have insight. As annoying and frustrating as that is, your nervous system only responds, only moves, only repatterns, reorganizes for one thing: safety." Let me describe it this way. When you have a pattern that your body is keeping you stuck in, your body is responding consistently the way it is because it believes that patterned response is the most efficient, most effective way of keeping you safe. So when we are trying to push our body into another pattern, into something that is a little less disruptive or a little more comfortable, instead of your nervous system going, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Let's try that. That'd probably be more comfortable," your nervous system goes, heck no. This pattern that I've been in for the last 10, 20, 30 years has proven effective at keeping me safe. So why on earth would I change it? In other words, your nervous system believes if I change this pattern that's been keeping me safe, I become less safe. Your nervous system will never release a pattern if it believes that releasing it will create less safety. It will expose you to more potential danger. And that is as it should be. We want our nervous system optimized to keep us as safe as possible, but sometimes we also need these patterns to shift. That is what we're digging into today. Hey, Alyssa here. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Safety Map podcast. If you are enjoying this content, if you're learning something here, or even just identifying with what we've been talking about, please take a moment to subscribe or follow on whatever platform you're currently listening in on. This really helps other people find the content, and it makes sure that you don't miss a single upcoming episode. Thank you so much. Now back to today's episode. All right, so the question is, why am I still doing this thing if I know better? Why am I still people-pleasing or over-explaining or shutting down or over-apologizing or minimizing myself or avoiding getting on an airplane when I know intellectually there's a better way? And we tend to assume that if we're not changing, it's because we don't know enough yet. But as I explained, that's not how it works. Understanding a pattern does not change the pattern. Let me say that again. Understanding a pattern does not change a pattern. Understanding why that pattern formed, how it got established in the first place, what your system was reacting to when it chose that pattern, none of that changes the pattern. None of it. Zero, zilch, nada. And the more we try to force that insight onto our body, onto our nervous system, in other words, the more we try to say, you know better, do better, get it together, the more resistance we actually create in our own systems. We can understand things cognitively. We often do, right? There are so many great resources out there to help us cognitively understand what our bodies are doing, the patterns that we are stuck in. But if your nervous system doesn't understand that releasing that pattern might be safer than holding on to that pattern, it's like your nervous system listens to your carefully thought out, well-crafted explanation as to why this pattern should be released, and it looks at you and says something like, oh, cool story. Thanks for sharing. Still not safe. And it holds on to the pattern. Let me give you a couple practical examples of how this tends to show up in our lives. Maybe you know you're a people pleaser. Maybe you can describe to me exactly what you're doing when you're people pleasing. Maybe you know that this people pleasing isn't serving you well. And so you're trying to change it. You're using boundaries. You're learning to say no. But if your system knows that people pleasing is likely to lead to rejection or abandonment or disconnection or conflict, it is not going to release the pattern of people pleasing because the rejection or the abandonment or the disconnection is less safe than the people pleasing pattern. You can know that you are in a relationship that isn't good for you, and you can intellectually decide, I need to get out of this relationship. But if leaving feels like grief or instability or loss or being alone in the world, your system might keep you stuck there, because sometimes unhealthy connection is safer than no connection. You can intellectually know that conflict is okay. It's not inherently dangerous to disagree with someone, but if your body believes that disagreeing with someone will lead to disconnection in that relationship, you will most likely continue to avoid the conflict. So when you find yourself thinking, oh my gosh, why am I still doing this? Try asking the question, what does my system believe or perceive to be true that I am not yet aware of? What does my system believe will happen if I no longer do this thing? Change does not happen when you learn something new. Change happens when your nervous system begins to believe, I can do something different and still stay safe. Change doesn't come from more analyzing, more projecting, more figuring out, more judgment, more criticism, more control, more strong-arming. All those things that we try to do to get our nervous system to release patterns, to change our behavior, those things are not where change actually comes from. So where does it come from? It comes from new experiences, new data, an update for your system that says, oh wait, maybe I don't have to execute the level 10 response when this thing happens. Maybe I can execute a level 5 response and still stay safe. I was talking this through recently, very recently, with a client, and she said, every time XYZ happens, I go straight to fight or flight, and I don't have any opportunity to respond in any other way, and I feel stuck because I shut down, and I freeze, and How do I change the pattern? How do I stop freezing? How do I stop fleeing so I can show up for myself? And I said to her, I said, oh, I completely understand that frustration. I could feel it. It was coming off of her in waves. It was tangible. And I said to her, the key here is not trying to force your body to no longer give you that level 10 response. It has decades of data to prove level 10, fight, flight, freeze, go straight to the most extreme response, keeps you safe. What we need to do instead is introduce to your system the idea that a level 7 response might also be effective. We can turn down the volume, the intensity of the response, and still stay safe. But here's the key. Your nervous system, but here's the key. Your safety map only opens to new information. It is only willing to update the prediction when safety is present. You can have experience after experience after experience that proves to you intellectually, cognitively, that a different pattern of behavior is safe. And it will be like tennis balls bouncing off the wall. It's not going to stick until your safety map is open to that data being rewritten. And we get there by creating enough safety, the gates can open just enough for a new possibility to be presented. This is what nervous system repair actually looks like. It does not look like reducing your symptoms by force. It doesn't look like regulating your way out of a nervous system activation. It looks like creating enough safety that change becomes possible, that new data can be introduced to your system so that it no longer believes a certain response is critical to your aliveness, identity, or connection, and it can release that pattern and update with new information. The system is no longer predicting danger. The protective pattern will release all on its own. One more thing I want to point out. Your body doesn't need 100% safety to release protective patterns. What your body actually needs is enough safety that it can open, take in new information, rewrite the threat prediction, release the old pattern. When the pattern is released by your nervous system all on its own, because it's no longer needed, your body will regulate all on its own. You will not need 57 regulation techniques and 20 minutes to calm your body. A safe body regulates all on its own. So if you've ever felt frustrated with yourself, why am I still here? I know better than this. Why can't I do this better? I want you to know this. Your body is not keeping you stuck because it's being obstinate, or it's stupid, or it's not performing well, or it's broken. Your body is keeping you stuck because it believes that the current pattern is the safest one. And when your system updates, when it repairs and changes the threat prediction, the behavior patterns will release without constant applied pressure. Your nervous system knows how to repair. It just needs the right conditions to be able to do that. If this is resonating with you and you want to learn more about what safety feels like in your body, I invite you to download the Calm is Not the Same as Safety PDF. The link is in the podcast notes down below this video. And at the end of the PDF, I have a very special invitation for you to a live event that I am doing coming up soon. So go grab that, check it out, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Safety Map podcast.